I'm Chris Hughes, CEO and co-founder of Aquia, a service-disabled veteran-owned small business with a focus on cybersecurity, cloud infrastructure, as well as digital services. And today we're going to be hearing from our team members on various topics like SaaS governance, threat modeling, zero trust, and continuous ATO. Before we do, I want to take a brief moment to show you a video about ourselves as well as our partner, Nava Public Benefit Corporation, where we have a joint venture called Aquia Nava 2. So you can hear a bit about our team, our core focus areas, and some of our areas of expertise. Thanks.
Aquia Nava 2 LLC is a joint venture between two digital service companies, Aquia Inc. and Nava Public Benefit Corporation. Together, we possess a shared vision, commitment to excellence, and deep experience driving positive change through human-centered digital solutions. Previously, Aquia and Nava partnered on the CMS Cloud initiative. Nava provided comprehensive IT services, including infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. We achieved significant milestones like tripling the number of applications that CMS can run and saving $12 million per year by updating just one logging tool. Aquia is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business focused on cloud and cybersecurity digital services. We empower government mission owners to achieve secure, efficient, and compliant digital transformation. Founded in 2021, Aquia brings the agility and innovation of commercial tech to the public sector, allowing for the rapid adoption of cloud and cybersecurity technologies. Recently, we played a critical role in the development of a DevSecOps platform as a service for a large federal agency, helping them achieve 74% control inheritance for the NIST 853 risk management framework and the initial authority to operate. As recent recipients of the Department of Health and Human Services 2024 Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Small Business of the Year Award, we feel a deep sense of responsibility to make our country digitally capable and secure. Nava is a tech consultancy and a public benefit corporation working to make government services simple, effective, and accessible to all. As a growing company, we've built intuitive software that's helped 50+ million beneficiaries enroll in critical services. We've modernized complex legacy systems and operations, and we've helped government agencies save billions of dollars. We're no stranger to supporting human-centered cloud adoption. Nava previously assisted the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services in moving from costly data centers to the cloud, helping millions of people enroll in Medicare and allowing CMS to process billions of claims. Nava's founders helped rescue and rebuild healthcare.gov after its troubled launch, recognizing that modern technology skills paired with strong consulting skills could help our public institutions adapt to the challenges of the digital age. Our joint venture recently won an award on USDA's Stratus Cloud Basic Ordering Agreement, a significant milestone in delivering innovative cloud solutions. Together, we'll leverage our expertise to enhance the efficiency, security, and effectiveness of USDA's cloud infrastructure. Through our shared vision, we continue to strive for transformative change and tangible benefits for our government and its citizens.
Thanks so much. And as I talked about, we're going to be covering a wide range of topics today, some different areas of expertise that our team has here. You'll be hearing from 4 different Aquia team members with expertise in their various domains, covering topics like zero trust, threat modeling, SaaS governance, and continuous ATO. These are all core topics that we understand and have deep expertise in, and no federal agencies are working to make progress on. So let's kind of walk through each of those at a high level. First off, you're going to be hearing about SaaS governance. When we think about things like cloud security, there's often a hyper focus on infrastructure as a service providers, things like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, for example. But the reality is while organizations may be using a few IaaS providers, they're using several hundred SaaS providers. And this requires a core focus on SaaS governance and security. Our team has helped stand up one of the first SaaS governance programs in the entire federal ecosystem, which is aimed around 3 pillars, which are discovering the SaaS that's in use, helping manage that SaaS throughout its compliance lifecycle and its lifecycle within the organization, and then ultimately securing that SaaS. So moving beyond things such as compliance like SOC 2 and FedRAMP, and actually securing the SaaS environments using tools like SaaS Security Posture Management, looking at what data is involved, the use cases, access control, and more. Then we've been hearing, obviously, quite a bit of focus in areas like secure by design and need to build security in rather than bolting it on. This is where you're going to hear from one of our team members discussing threat modeling. And this is going to be doing fundamental activities and asking questions such as, what are we working on? What can go wrong? What are we going to do about it? Did we do a good enough job? And it helps you identify what could go wrong in a system and identify design, architecture, and implementation issues that are key to consider, either earlier in the software development lifecycle or throughout the entire SDLC, for example, even when things are deployed to production, or you have a new version of software or a system being deployed, making updates, and so on. It can also help you identify threats that can be used to inform decisions and drive decision making in areas like design, development, testing, production, all of which are aimed at mitigating organizational risk. It also can be used to empower development teams and engineers to conduct their own threat models as part of iterative software development, agile software development, as we like to call it, for example. And threat modeling is also key to conduct when we think about emerging technologies and adopting technologies like AI, ML, Gen AI, and LLM. So you'll hear a bit from our team about how they're doing those activities with some of our current partners. Next is going to be the topic of zero trust. We've had issues like the Cybersecurity Executive Order, of course, which was followed up by the Federal Zero Trust Strategy. We've now had CISA release their Zero Trust Maturity Model. So we'll be diving into topics like leveraging cloud-native technologies such as infrastructure as code to create hardened landing zones and mature zero trust environments, as well as automating some zero trust maturity assessments, leveraging things like automation in the cloud, managed services, and so on. And then last but not least, we'll be discussing the topic of continuous ATO. We know there's a push to move agencies toward continuous ATO. And when we look at things like DevOps and agile software development, it often feels like GRC got left behind. In a world of cloud and code and APIs, GRC often lives in things like Excel, Word, and snapshots and manual toil and cumbersome activities. The ATO process has a hard time keeping pace with agile software development, and we'll be discussing leveraging cloud-native managed services, APIs, and automated assessments. We'll be discussing things such as hardened infrastructure as code that's mapped to security controls, the shared responsibility model, and security control inheritance from cloud providers and platforms. We'll also be discussing codified machine-readable artifacts such as OSCAL, and then moving from typical legacy continuous monitoring to real continuous monitoring that's not a snapshot in time, but keeps pace with the threat landscape that we're all dealing with. And all this is oriented around bringing GRC and ATOs out of the dark ages and keeping pace with the age of DevOps. That said, sit back and enjoy. We have some great talks lined up for you.
Thank you, Chris, and hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Wallace, and I'm supporting CMS on the SaaS governance program. First, I'd like to take a look at SaaS security, being cloud security. The importance of SaaS security and cloud security is often overlooked, yet still remains an unaddressed risk. SaaS security is critically important, yet it still remains a major blind spot for many organizations. Entities often rely heavily on numerous SaaS applications to streamline operations, support remote workforces, and facilitate collaboration. However, this widespread adoption can introduce significant security vulnerabilities. Many operate under the false assumption that their SaaS providers are solely responsible for securing data within these applications, but that's not true. This misconception leaves gaps in security protocols, potentially exposing vast amounts of sensitive data, intellectual property, and critical operational information to cyber threats. In this rush to harness the benefits of SaaS tools, organizations frequently overlook security as they focus on accelerating digital transformation and improving operational efficiency. With SaaS applications embedded deeply into various business processes, it's not uncommon for different departments to procure and use these tools without proper oversight from their security or IT teams. And if there's one key takeaway that you get from this session, it's to prioritize SaaS security. If you're not prioritizing SaaS security, you leave wide gaps for malicious actors to exploit your organization, ultimately resulting in injury and loss of customer trust. Let's talk about the key challenges for organizations. They lack visibility and control over their sprawling SaaS environments. Traditionally, security solutions are often inadequate for addressing the unique and complex architecture of SaaS applications. As a result, security teams struggle to monitor user activity enforce access controls, and maintain consistent data protection policies across multiple platforms. This lack of centralized management leaves blind spots, making it easier for malicious actors to exploit vulnerabilities. SaaS security is critical, yet often it goes overlooked by many aspects within cybersecurity strategy. It demands a proactive approach that involves close collaboration between IT, security, and business units to identify risk, implement access controls, and enforce data governance policies. Without a comprehensive security strategy, organizations risk exposing sensitive data to potential breaches, non-compliance with regulatory requirements, and erosion, again, of customer trust. Let's talk about going beyond compliance. SaaS governance goes far beyond just achieving compliance with frameworks such as FedRAMP or other regulatory standards. While compliance is a critical aspect, true SaaS governance encompasses a broader set of practices that bring value to an organization's overall security posture, operational efficiency, and strategic decision making. Effective governance ensures that SaaS applications are well managed, used, and optimized in ways that align with the organization's goals for mitigating risk while maximizing the benefits that these tools have to offer. Let's talk about SSPM. Let's build on the idea of SaaS governance extending far beyond compliance. SSPM is a natural next step in creating a holistic security strategy for SaaS environments. While governance sets the foundation for managing and optimizing SaaS use, SSPM takes it further by continuously monitoring for security posture alignment of these applications. It provides a proactive layer of security that addresses misconfigurations, data privacy, and access controls, all of which go beyond simple checkbox compliance. By leveraging SSPM, organizations can ensure that their SaaS applications not only are compliant, but also are securely configured to protect against evolving threats and operational risk. SSPM provides organizations with a comprehensive approach. Let's look into SaaS governance and how Aquia has developed 3 primary pillars for a SaaS governance framework. A comprehensive SaaS governance program is crucial for managing SaaS consumption within an organization. Such a program encompasses various aspects of SaaS management, including discovering SaaS in use, vetting and performing deep analysis into inherited risk from SaaS providers, and ensuring SaaS environments are configured securely and in alignment with regulatory requirements. Let's look at the 3 main pillars: discovering and inventorying SaaS applications. Organizations often struggle with shadow IT, where employees use unauthorized SaaS applications without the knowledge of their IT department. Tooling can help discover and inventory all SaaS applications within use and within the organization, providing a complete picture of the SaaS landscape. This visibility is essential for identifying potential security risks and ensuring that all applications are properly managed. Let's move on to our managed pillar. Before adopting any SaaS applications, it's important to conduct a thorough risk assessment. This involves evaluating the SaaS application's security features, compliance with industry standards, and potential vulnerabilities. In addition, organizations should be aware of a SaaS vendor's complete pedigree, which includes but may not be limited to SOC 2 reports, penetration tests, and previous history of breaches. And then we move on to from our managed pillar over to the secure pillar. Ultimately, this will be SSPM. Our goal of SSPM, again, is to ensure that all SaaS applications are secure and compliant with organizational policy and industry regulation for compliance. By continuously monitoring and managing the security posture of SaaS application, SSPM helps. It helps organizations mitigate risk, prevent data breaches, and maintain the integrity of their cloud environments. Thank you for joining me today to learn more about SaaS governance. Now we'll transition to team member Robert for threat modeling.
Hey, thanks, Daniel. So we're going to be talking about threat modeling. This is Robert Hurlbut. I'm a principal application security architect and threat modeling lead at Aquia, but I'm also supporting some initiatives at CMS regarding threat modeling. I'm part of CASP, which is the CMS application security program. And as we mentioned, I'm going to be talking about threat modeling today. So our agenda is that we'll go over an introduction to threat modeling. We'll talk about a good example of a threat model, and we'll also take a look at threat modeling and the federal government. Now, we like to say that threat modeling is something that we're already doing. Typically, when we're thinking about going somewhere, what do? We lock the door to our house, we lock the windows. If we're parking somewhere, we walk away from our car. First of all, we think about we probably need to lock our car doors. And then also, if we're crossing the street, we're trying to get to the other side, we want to do that safely. And so maybe we'll go over to a corner, we'll wait for a light to let us go across the street, we'll look both ways, all those kinds of things. All those things we're doing is essentially a mental model of thinking about threats and thinking about how to deal with them. And that's essentially what threat modeling is about. We think ahead on what could go wrong. We ask those what if questions. We weigh the risks and we act accordingly. And so again, we do that intuitively for our own personal safety and security. But when we're talking about systems, we can also apply some of these similar concepts to think about a threat model or a mental model of the potential threats to a system. Now, by definition, threat modeling is analyzing representations of a system to highlight concerns about security and privacy characteristics. With that in mind, the representations could be a description of the system, it could be a diagram. And when you're thinking about security and privacy, again, those are just characteristics of a system that we want to focus on and make sure that we have a good system that is secure and private. Now, the 4-question framework is a way of asking these questions that will help us to really build a good threat model. First of all, what are we working on? What is that we're concerned about? What part of the system do we want to focus on? Or maybe a particular feature that we want to add? So that's the first question. What are we working on? And also, what are we working on right now? Second is, what could go wrong? And that's where we start to identify threats. What could happen here? What could somebody do? And so we ask that question, and it's going to help us to identify those threats. The third question is, what are we going to do about it? So we've identified threats. Now, how do we deal with those threats? And those are the mitigations, the countermeasures that we might put in place. Now, the fourth question is about, did we do a good enough job? We go back and review. Are there any threats that maybe came up as a result of doing our analysis? Are there any mitigations that we didn't think about before that maybe we notice now, or maybe even mitigations that we need to improve? We go back and review. But we get to a point where we say, we think we have a pretty good threat model. We have a pretty good mental model of the potential threats, as well as the needed mitigations to be put in place. Now, in terms of a good threat model example, let's take those questions and take a look at a pretty common thing that we need within our systems. Let's say, in this case, an API that's hosted in a cloud environment. What could go wrong? Well, unauthenticated or unauthorized access to that API. Maybe the methods that you have on the API are just too generic and allow too much authority, too much things to happen and could go wrong within that API. Now, what are we going to do about it? We might go back and review and determine, let's implement some good authentication authorization. Zero Trust is a good solution here. Minimize functionality of those API methods. Restrict the method calls based on access. And then finally, did we do a good enough job, a review for additional threats, as well as this can help you inform your test plans. Now that you know there's some potential threats, let's test for that, authentication, authorization, as well as what does the API do. So there we have a very simple threat model, a good example of one. Now let's talk about threat modeling in the federal government. In the last few years, CISA has come out with some really good recommendations on secure by design. And within that, threat modeling can help you focus on applying and thinking about applying secure design, as well as not only from the beginning, but throughout the security and development lifecycle. Another focus of the federal government is within these initiatives, radical transparency and accountability. Using threat modeling, you can bring awareness into the team early and often about these threats, as well as it can help inform about needed mitigations, and that'll be great to be able to then follow up. Now, I will say that one of the things that we've done in terms of applying threat modeling and helping, in particular, CMS, is meeting with teams to develop threat models, which includes those things of diagramming and asking about threats. We have quarterly training opportunities. There are a few sessions that shows there, introductory and deeper dive into identifying threats, monthly office hours to answer questions, and then also a number of self-serve resources for any team that they can use, a handbook, templates, videos, and so forth. Now, if you're interested in learning more, Aquia is available. We certainly can help you with putting together a program or just answering questions. We also have a white paper that we wrote about threat modeling within cloud workloads and how to protect those. So take a look. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mac, who's going to take you through understanding about Zero Trust.
Thanks, Robert. Let's talk about Zero Trust. Hi, everybody. I am Mackenzie Wartenberger. I am a security architect and Zero Trust subject matter expert with Aquia. I currently support the CMS Enterprise and Hybrid Cloud team on ISPG contract to implement Zero Trust security solutions and Zero Trust architecture. So I'm going to start things off with a meme. How many of you have rolled through a stop sign? And really be honest here. That's what traditional security is. It's just a stop sign. And what do you do at stop signs? You get mad and roll through. It's not safety, it's a blocker. And once you've rolled through, you're exposed to all kinds of risk. Where we want to be is traffic circles, granular controls that are fault tolerant, that are aligned with business objectives to keep things moving. That's what Zero Trust is. So I'm not going to bore you with the long definition of Zero Trust, but NIST defines Zero Trust as a set of security strategies rather than a particular set of technologies that are designed at granular controls over critical assets in a system. Zero Trust architecture, of course, is just the implementation of Zero Trust. I want to dig right away, though, into what's not Zero Trust. There's a lot of confusion around this security framework. It's become kind of a buzzword, and the advertising space around Zero Trust gets things wrong a lot. Zero Trust is not plug and play tools. We love tools, but tools without strategy are a waste of time and money. It's also not single pillar approaches. Let's think of Zero Trust network access as a good example of this. While Zero Trust network access is a great way to get to Zero Trust, it's not Zero Trust in itself. True Zero Trust security has to be holistic in nature and address all the parts of an enterprise system. Zero Trust is also not technology over people. True Zero Trust has to be targeted and tailored to its users to be effective. Zero Trust is a mindset, it's a strategy, it's a process. It's not something that you can buy. So let's talk about how we define Zero Trust for civilian agencies. In this context, we're going to use CISA, their Zero Trust maturity model, and NIST's special publication 800-207, which is all about Zero Trust architecture. That publication is use cases around how enterprises can improve their overall information technology security posture. And the CISA Zero Trust maturity model is kind of the codified civilian approach to Zero Trust. CISA defines their maturity model with 5 pillars: identity, devices, networks. data, applications, and workloads, and 3 cross-cutting functions: visibility and analytics, automation and orchestration, and governance. The idea here is that if you're addressing zero trust security in all of these different areas, you're going to have a robust and mature system. And that's what we're looking for. We're really looking for zero trust to enable great business functions. But people get this wrong a lot too. There's a common misconception that zero trust is expensive and kind of impossible to achieve. But in reality, zero trust can be a huge cost saving and value multiplier. It allows you to leverage your existing tech stack, build these solutions in your ecosystem. You can centralize all of your resources to maximize efficiency. It can unlock enhanced buying power and reduce vendor creep, again, staying away from those plug and play tools and looking at things that are more holistic. True zero trust can reduce friction, even though lots of people think otherwise, for access, use, and management, and really helps unlock the ability for remote work, the use of AI and machine learning for enhanced automation, and can really future-proof organizations against all kinds of threats unknown. But how do we get there? When Aquia pairs with our federal partners, we choose to use a gap assessment to really help us target and tailor our zero trust approach to that agency or enterprise. So what's a gap assessment? It's a map to where we want to go. And there's many ways to get there, but the most important thing is that it's done for you and your system in a way that feels like it's authentic and respectful for where you're trying to go. We start things off with a holistic inventory of that system, the architecture, the GRC policies, stakeholder interviews, vendor lists, etc. And then we make an assessment of core business and mission objectives. How did those things align with system capabilities? Then we're going to use that CISA zero trust maturity model to evaluate all of that data against their defined standards to determine where that agency is today in their zero trust journey. And then we kind of can see where we want to go from there. That's where we develop that tailored and targeted implementation roadmap to address maturity that aligns with those core business values. That could be something like adding phishing-resistant MFA to an authentication system. It could be tuning security groups within your network interface for cloud. It could be enhancing encryption and key management, or it can be privilege access management for your super users. Whatever that looks like for you, the gap assessment ultimately culminates in a roadmap and implementation guidance that delivers improvements early and often that are based on the most important things to our agency partners. Let's talk about the most important things. For our gap assessments, the focus is on protecting DAS. And DAS, of course, is data, assets, applications, and services. These are what need to be defined, and then where protections need to be applied for anyone trying to achieve zero trust. Those walls we used to create around a system in a perimeter-based approach are now applied to each granular part of an agency's DAS. These are referred to as protect surfaces in zero trust parlance. Once we've defined all of that DAS through something like a criticality analysis, where we try to identify the areas of business that are absolutely crucial to function, we can tailor resource usage with that delivery. It helps us identify areas for centralization and enhanced efficiency, and it again informs that roadmap to deliver value early and often. Ultimately, that helps us align our stakeholder groups with our security best practices. And that's not the only way that a gap assessment can be helpful. Those assessments allow us to prioritize education and training to ensure that users understand new security protocols and design workflows that are geared to minimize friction and provide support during transitions from things like legacy systems to cloud. We also can prioritize those critical systems and focus on high-value assets and critical infrastructure for early zero trust deployment, while extending support downstream for legacy systems over time. We can prioritize identity as the new perimeter through things like MFA, role-based access control, and context-based access control, all things that can help address a remote workforce. And we can assume breach. And we say, let's microsegment our system so that when a malicious outsider gets into our system or a malicious insider, they can't move laterally, and we're securing our critical data. And we can also bring in automation to drive simplicity and move things forward. And how do we scale with zero trust? Well, it's all about a phased approach. we want to make sure that we're implementing zero trust frameworks in a measured and gradual way so that our users and our teams can adjust. We're correlating our objectives to ensure that secure access to enterprise-wide data and services across all levels is focused on critical DAS and core business objectives. And then we tailor those implementations to make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck. We also want to make sure that our implementations are human-centered so that we are democratizing the security of an entire system. And we want things to be smooth. We want users to gain secure, frictionless access to critical services, enabling smooth transitions without impacting productivity. Seamless access controls result in improved collaboration and adaptability across emerging technologies like AI and multi-cloud environments. So the TLDR here is expertise in zero trust is super important. Not one size does definitely not fit all when you're trying to implement zero trust in an agency. Tools aren't a panacea. They aren't the solution to zero trust. A holistic approach is. And remember that it's a journey. So your trusted guides are really important. Thank you so much for this quick lesson on zero trust. I'm going to hand it over to Lloyd to talk about continuous ATO.
Thank you, Mac. I am Lloyd Evans. I'm the Vice President for Governance, Risk, and Compliance here at Aquia. I am currently supporting a platform as a service within the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare, and I'm leading continuous authority to operate efforts within Aquia. I am an Air Force veteran, as well as a proud owner of 3 dogs, along with my wife here north of Austin, Texas, and I'm also an AWS community builder. So what is continuous authority to operate? Continuous authority to operate is the continuous implementation of the risk management framework at its core to secure delivery of outcomes. A common myth for CTO is that it's somehow doing RMF different or kind of going around the ATO process differently, when in reality, continuous RMF is the application of RMF principles at a higher standard than your traditional point-in-time ATO process. And all of this supports the goal that we are all currently moving towards within the federal ecosystem, which is fast, reliable, secure, and compliant delivery of value. And value equating to software which enables user and customer outcomes. Everything that we'll talk about as a part of this presentation is going to be supporting this in some way, shape, or form. And that begins with our tooling, along with our mindset for the outcomes that we're looking to achieve, such as real-time monitoring, automation, alongside Agile and DevSecOps practices. Our roadmap to encompass this begins with kind of changing the way that we're implementing our systems and introducing automations. And at the heart of that comes from our GRC tooling. Moving from more traditional GRC tooling, which is very heavily usually Excel-based, lacks API integration. We want to begin discovery with federal agencies, seeing where their current processes are at, mapping those out, and setting the stage for the ability to automate those towards the outcomes that we've mentioned. Going into the automation phase, we want to be very mindful that we're crafting these in alignment with the people who are involved within the organization, and not just creating something completely new in a silo, but really taking what is existing and then stitching that to be able to enable the people who are on the ground, who are going to be going through assessments, creating documentation. We want to make sure that this is more of a transformation than a complete replacement of current existing processes within a federal agency. The integration part comes next, stitching the new things to the kind of existing ways, especially the existing people, making sure systems are integrated. Once you have your GRC tooling set up, you have your automations in place, especially those involving your system security plan, your assessments, your documentation. Now we want to be able to extend that through API integration to our systems that we're going to be supporting, and doing so in a way that's scalable so that we can maintain operational efficiency, going from our initial pilot system all the way up to hundreds of systems within an agency. And throughout this, we really want to come to the heart of continuous assessment and authorization. So as I mentioned earlier, continuous authority to operate is really the RMF process held to a higher standard. We're not going to be doing point-in-time assessments. We're going to be moving towards a continuous monitoring, continuous assessment, and how we do that is establishing systems which maximize control inheritance. And one of the ways that we can go about that is through a platform as a service, creating infrastructure templates, reusable things that applications can leverage security control inheritance from to be able to reduce their compliance burden, their time, and increase our kind of the automation to be able to continuously monitor those systems. All of this infrastructure needs to be approved from an authorizing official under an ATO, and then ideally we're dogfooding this by applying the same principles that we apply to systems to our continuous authority to operate systems, and are able to fully be able to realize that model. Also, this lends itself to being able to repeat this approach, through leveraging kind of the combination of GRC tooling as well as our automations. We can allow this to be able to be repeatable from one system to the next. And that's really the key to scaling this throughout a federal agency, with one of the end results being achieving faster time to ATOs by having all of the inherited items from a platform as a service or whichever underlying infrastructure that you're leveraging already being vetted through your continuous ATO process. All of your applications receive that good work through inheritance. And this really enables a more productive workforce across the agency. Security training is a huge part of this, given that this is going to be, for an agency who's not already doing cATO net new, security training is going to be very huge for both the stakeholder and the user aspects to be able to do this effectively. And through this, we're supporting the goal through increased trust, security, transparency, all the while we're reducing costs by shifting work that is currently done by manual efforts to automated workflows that can then be tracked much more accurately through cost analysis. And this left-hand visual really showcases the different ways that we can do this. So on the left, there's infrastructure as a service, just setting up your cloud service provider, maybe doing some initial infrastructure templates. You're going to have a small level of inheritance, especially across the things that apply to the controls that apply to data centers, but you're not going to have a whole lot on the application or the cloud service provider configuration level from inheritance. Kubernetes bumps this up a little bit more. There's different flavors of Kubernetes. There's home rolled, there's EKS, GKE, Azure. You can use these as a next level up of inheritance, and we can configure those a little bit. But depending on the level of configuration, there can be varying ideals of complexity that can then be inherited to the user. And each of these configurations need to be mapped to controls to be able to fully achieve that inheritance. And so what we kind of end up on the right is the PaaS approach, where you have a configured Kubernetes platform on top of, if you're using Amazon, on top of EKS, you're inheriting also the infrastructure templates that are going to be used a part of this, as well as the CI/CD pipeline aspect. And together, this cohesively comes into a strong inheritance model that can also, depending on the cloud service provider, be assessed in an automated fashion using cloud native tooling. Our goal here is really to find the maximum amount of inheritance that works best for the federal agency and makes sense. And that also brings us to our secure release pipeline with control gates. We want to make sure that from source, we're scanning containers for SaaS, DAS, container vulnerability scanning, secret scanning, validating all of that through a compliance check, and then finally ending at container signing and applications leveraging those containers in production. And through this, we can work together hand in hand, automate manual processes, move from point-in-time assessments to continuous automated assessments. And this all goes back to our goal of delivering fast, reliable, secure, and compliant delivery of value. That faster and at a reduced cost and more reliable are things that I really want to hammer home. When we're talking about automating assessments, let's say through Audit Manager on AWS, there's a manual way that you can go through and check system security plan controls to account configurations. But when you're assessing systems with, let's say, a dozen accounts, the reliability factor of manual processes there really starts to fail. And then when you expand that out to hundreds of systems, you can understandably know that things aren't going to be 100% all the way through. Taking those existing processes, introducing an Audit Manager assessment that can then be deployed to n number of accounts, now you've increased reliability, you've increased the security, and you're moving things more towards a data-focused outcome. So if you'd like to dive deeper, again, my name is Lloyd Evans. You can watch additional talks that I've given on this topic here. You can also check out Rise 8's cATO playbook at playbook.rise8.us. They have a really, really great resource, and you can learn from some of the best. All right, thank you. I'll hand it back over to Chris.
Thanks, Lloyd. So you've had a chance to hear from our team of experts around topics like zero trust, threat modeling, SaaS governance, and continuous ATO. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our focus and expertise on emerging technologies like AI, Gen AI, and LLMs as well. Our team is working with agencies on adopting these technologies, implementing guardrails, and leveraging resources such as the OWASP LLM Top 10, the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, and others to ensure secure adoption and develop agency AI handbooks that account for security and privacy concerns when it comes to AI models and consuming AI services. If you're interested in this or any of the topics you heard from our team today, be sure to reach out to us. Thanks.